What's up, everybody? Claybo Jangles here. We're going to jump into the strategy stuff in just a second, but before then, I want to talk about Terra Mystica as a whole from my perspective. And I think it's beautiful. Not just aesthetically with all the colors, but how the game works itself, from the game mechanics, the player interaction, the fact that you have to strategize and plan all your moves, and also the idea that you're always in a constant state of prisoner's dilemma, weighing your options here and there. So, just for all those, I think it's great and awesome, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of people in your seat think it's really daunting and it's analysis paralysis. I don't want to spend an hour and a half just exploding my brain. So hopefully this video is going to make everything a little easier and obviously make you a better player.
Audio cut, but let's get it.
Alright, let's dive into these factions. I've gone ahead and put all the factions in a top, middle, bottom tier, and that can be kind of tricky because Terra Mystica is full of variables, right? I think there's 5 or 6 major ones that fluctuate factions being, up, down, middle, or whatever. So I've gone ahead and took out all the variables for this faction overview, and we're simply going to be taking the factions at face value. Alright, so this is going to be the key for the faction overview. I'm simply going to be taking like 1 to 2 minutes per faction, and I'm just going to be assigning them to wherever they deserve to go in these categories. There's 3 categories. There's Big Network, Play Culty, Culty 7/8. And some factions may go in just one, and some factions may go in all of these categories. And to put a faction in a category means this is a viable, winnable game plan. So if I put Nomads and Big Network, that means, hey, you should go big, place as many structures as possible. But you're never really going to see me put Nomads in Culty 7/8 because that's a game plan that's not really winnable and it's not viable. So that's sort of how this works. And by the end of it, I'll have all the factions placed in this little grid, and the factions on top are better than the ones on the bottom. So it's also a little bit tiered. So you can actually just skip to the end of the video if you don't want to see all the riff-raff in between and see the spoilers, but you will be missing out. It's good stuff. Alright, Alchemists, you're up. I'm just going to preface Alchemists with, if you want to become a master at Alchemist, just type in Zora's Ultimate Guide Alchemist and spend about 45 minutes learning Alchemist. You're good. But you want the quick 2-minute version, you'll be fine here. Alright, I know what you're thinking. Why are we starting with a mid-tier faction? Like, Clay, what are we thinking? But hold on. This isn't just any mid-tier faction. This is the Wolf of Wall Street mid-tier faction. This is the motherfucking Alchemist we're talking about. These guys can blow coins on anything like it's nothing, alright? I mean, literally, they can spend as many coins as they want because victory points are just coins for them. So, come on. And beyond that, these guys can have the most expansive network out of anybody. You want to play 17 structures, which is all your buildings on your board, you can do that with the Alchemist. Unfortunately, also like the Wolf of Wall Street, your game might just crumble before you and you're not really sure why, and everything just... But that's why they're mid-tier, whatever. So, as for the Alchemist, don't worry about the cults, just win network, do the best you can, and get all them workers. Gobble me, swallow me. Shout out Cardi B. Okay, now we got the colors going, it's on. Okay, so we got Walmart witches here. Auren. I got bad news and somewhat good news. The bad news is they suck, they're bottom tier. They're called Walmart witches for a reason, and that's they play the same game as the witches, but they don't get the points that witches do for the towns. And if each town is 5 points for the witches, that's -5 for the Auren. So you're looking at 10 to 15 points worse than the witches, the Auren are. The good news-ish is these guys are one of the big 4 on the cults, so they can hold their own up there. Alright, so the key takeaways here. You are a very culty faction. Anytime you have a very culty faction, you don't have to play super expansive. You can kind of play these small 7 structured games, 8 structured games where you only build those Or you can play the same game as the witches and just forego the 10 or 15 points that you would have for making the town. So you got some flexibility there, and we'll go over which path you'd probably choose later on. But that's the Auren for you. Sorry, Zebo.
They suck.
That's right. It's red time. Is it Chaos Magicians or is it Giants? Spoiler alert, it's alphabetical. So Giants. Just kidding. Learn your ABCs. Chaos Magician. Whew. I'm actually pretty excited to talk about these guys for the next minute or two. So, Chaos Magicians, they are chaotic and they are magical. Very fun to play. They get 2 favor tiles when they build a temple or a sanctuary. So, you have the option to go like economy, or victory point, economy tile. So, that probably didn't make any sense. Maybe it did. I don't know. Either way, these guys have a lot of options and it's just really fun. Okay, so I know I'm not selling you on them, and that's on me. I suck at this. But what you gotta believe is they are one of the big 4 in the cults. They are incredible. So they're gonna play super culty here. They're gonna play super expansive there. They can do both. Or they can play 7 structures. I mean, they can do whatever they want. They're the Chaos Magicians, alright? They pull magic out of their... Okay, there's no kids around here. They pull magic out of their action 6. Terra Mystica pun. Alright, so for the key takeaways for the Chaos, just play super culty. Matter of fact, you're going to be super culty without even trying. Just try and be super expansive, dominate cults, and have fun. Because they're really fun. I swear. Really fun. So, Cultists. Alright, so we got our first top tier faction, the Cultists. And these guys are stupid good. It's stupid how stupid they are. What? I'm stupid. I'm a stupid person, and I can play the Cultists and do really well. So what does that tell you? All jokes aside, Cultists are great. Great faction, fun to play. Actually, one of my top played factions. I really enjoy it. The thing with Cultist is, and I'm assuming you know the rules here, when opponents accept your leech, you get to bump up in a cult. And that's huge. It's good for in-game points. It's good for in-game economy. It's good for a lot of things. And the only downside to the Cultist is they're just stupid. I mean, there's no downside. Honestly, they're probably the most deserving top tier faction. I think most people will argue that they are the number 1 faction in Terra Mystica, so you really can't go wrong playing them. Well, I guess there are things that can, the whole variability thing, whatever. So the major takeaways here for the Cultist is play super expansive, play super culty. It sounds obvious, but that's what you want to do. And they can do it really well. And sometimes occasionally they'll walk away with 40 plus in-game victory points out of 50, which is a lot. So a lot can be done with the Cultists. Darklings, that's right. Darklings, top tier, baby. Let me tell you something about Darklings. They're like the mafiosa of Terra Mystica, alright? The Darklings sit there. You come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding. Yeah, I don't remember the quote, but you get the point. They run the show. And I know what I said earlier about the Cultists being all, the most deserving faction of top tier. Look, I had to. He was standing right in front of me, alright? But we all know Darklings are, alright? They are the number 1 faction, alright? These guys are fucking beasts. They use priests to dig. Literally, they're just like, bro, I'm a fucking dog, bro. What? The Cultists can't do that. They pray to no man. Anyways, Darklings, I got lots to say. Oh, and don't think I'm gonna let the whole digging thing slide. No. That's the most cracked part of the whole operation. When they dig with their priest, they get points. Yeah, plural. Points. 2. What? That's how you become a top tier faction. Okay, Auren? So you might be asking yourself, well, Claybo, with that kind of flexibility, what am I supposed to do? Sky's the limit, buddy. You can do whatever you want. You want to play culty? Go for it. I don't advise it, but you can do it. You want to play super expansive? Definitely go for it. You can do it. A lot of people are going to try and block you. I'm just going to be honest. All right, you're a threat when you play the Darklings. Everyone's like, how do we start the Darklings? All right, and then they shine some light on the subject, and then boom, Darklings are gone. That was a terrible joke. Point is, Darklings, they can do whatever they want. The biggest thing is they want priest, and the way you do that is you get temples, and then you gotta fund it. So big econ, big priest production. Alright, we had our fun with the back-to-back top tier factions, but we're falling back down to earth. We're at the mid-tier range again, and again, if this wasn't already clear before, all of these mid-tier factions can easily be a top-tier faction. It all depends on the setup, but, you know, that's not how we're going to gauge this. So, Dwarves it is. Dwarves are cool. They're small. They like to tunnel, and tunnels require workers, so, you know, you would make the connection, dwarves want a lot of workers, and that is true. The interesting thing about dwarves is they can't use shipping, so they have all these extra priests when they build these temples, and those priests just go straight to the cults 9 times out of 10. Every now and then you might convert it, or you might want to upgrade digs. I don't know. All I was getting at with the priest talk is dwarves are surprisingly good at cults. Not a top 4, but don't sleep on them. The key takeaway for the dwarves is you're going to want to place a lot of structures, so you're going to want a big economy. And the best part of your economy needs to be your workers, because you're going to be using a lot of them, and those workers score you a lot of points. Also, do well in the cults, because you should. I realize that last clip you just watched makes it sound like I'm saying have more workers than coins. That's not what I was saying. I was just saying focus on workers, kind of like Alchemists, workers are king. I have this rule of thumb I created when I first started playing Terra Mystica. It got me far, I still use it, and feel free to apply it. It works super well. It's a 2-to-1 ratio. For every 1 worker you have, you want 2 gold. So, Clay, why are you wearing another gray shirt? That's because we have another gray faction. That is why. Alright, so we got the engineers. Last top tier faction. Yeah, I gotta be honest, it felt a little weird putting engineers in the top tier faction, but they are incredibly strong. I mean, they have a super high ceiling. They play super expansive. They can always compete for first or second in network. They can snag a cult or 2. I've seen some culty engineers. They've got a lot going for them. They're just a little more fragile than the other top tier factions. That's the only reason it felt a little weird. And honestly, I could have put some other people at the top tier faction. I really mainly did it just to make the arrangements of the factions look cool. But you didn't hear that from me. So what makes these engineers so good, you say, eh? Well, I'll tell you. And I won't tell you it's their stronghold ability. As a matter of fact, I'll just tell you it's the fact that they have a super economic advantage over everyone. If you just look at their player boards relative to everyone else, every building is just super cheap. I mean super cheap. The only downside is every 3rd dwelling you build, you don't get the worker back. So there's just a teeny tiny weird scarcity of workers for the engineers, but that can easily be fixed with a Earth 2 grab, and we'll go over that in the opening section. But again, workers have a huge economic advantage, so the way they leverage this against everyone else in the point department is they just go for massive network, massive economy, and they also, you know, along the way are building a bunch of super good point worthy buildings. So yeah, just build a lot of shit. Alright, next up, we got a special one. The Fakirs. Yes, they might be the worst faction, but they know how to party. Fakirs are quite fun to play, and it's mostly because you know it's just going to be really rewarding if you win, because you're always supposed to lose. It's one of those things. So if you do end up playing Fakirs ever, just go in knowing you're supposed to lose. It helps me sleep at night, at least. As for the game overview for the Fakirs, you do want to play pretty expansive. You sometimes can win network. It's pretty tough, but it's achievable. You want to have a good source of priest income, so the more temples the better. You can play a little culty, sometimes it's not really worth it just because priests are 4 points when you carpet flight with them. So yeah, just want to do a bunch of carpet flights honestly as the Fakirs and try and secure your yellow hexes. That's what it's all about, baby. That's a giant glass of chocolate milk. Yes, we got the Giants now, and easily the most thematically fitting faction. And what I mean by that is these guys are straight up bullies. When Giants are in the game, their one job is to bully other people. And it's incredible when you're playing the Giants and you're just like, oh, you wanted that hex? Nope. So while you're bullying kids and taking their lunch money, you do need to make towns. That's very important. At least 2, but hopefully 3. Just a couple key takeaways for you when you're playing the Giants. Alright, this first one is not as important, but it needs to be said. You need to play for longest network. You have got to build a ton of fucking buildings, alright? So do your best. And number 2, don't forget a glass of chalky. These guys are weird. I think a lot of people think that they suck because their counterpart, the Cultists, are just so good that it's like, why would you ever want to play Halflings? And the only answer everyone has is when there's digging. So, you know, when it's not digging, Halflings are meh. I mean, I guess. I mean, they're in the bottom tier, and they're easily the best bottom tier faction. So if anything, they're on the cusp of a mid tier. So Halflings, here you go. So the deal with Halflings is digging. Digging. It's all about digging. You're going to hear me say digging a lot when I'm talking about Halflings, because Halflings dig. So why dig? Well, they've got 2 unique qualities that push them towards this. Number 1 is they get a point for every time they dig. So you do want to get points, might as well dig. The other thing is you get super cheap upgraded digs. So because you put those 2 together, your game plan as Halflings most of the time revolves around digging. This is Terra Mystica though, where there are other paths to victory, and it is very rare to play low footprint Halfling games where the 7-8 structure thing I was talking about, but it is possible. The vastly more viable game plan for the Halflings is just play really expansive, plain and simple. Big econ, do a bunch of stuff. In with another thematic faction, we've got the Mermaids. They're pretty good at all things involving water. So shipping and building towns over water, that's pretty much it. But those are really big things. The main reason this is such a big thing for the Mermaids is it allows them to be super flexible with how they build their towns and also when they build their towns. That when is a very crucial thing that not a lot of factions have. That flexibility is really unique. Beyond that, they're just another expansive faction. You want to play for network, do the best you can. You can also win a cult. You should probably win water, and every now and then you can have a pretty culty Mermaids game. So you definitely have some flexibility with how you want to play the cult versus network, or a little bit of both. Alright, we got another beast of a faction here with the Nomads, and honestly these guys are pretty basic except that they start with a 3rd dwelling. And this 3rd dwelling is huge. I mean, you can block other players with it. It gives you flexibility of playing safe or getting extra leech. It's got a lot of cool things with it. But also, it gives you an extra worker income, which nobody else has. And that allows for a nice economy boost. So what do we want to do with the economy boost? We want to go big econ and be super expansive. This is another definitive expansive faction. You only want to play super expansive. I mean, yeah, you can win a cult or not or so, but you don't want to just be playing culty or just be playing these small structures. Go big. or go home no matter what. No matter what? Like it doesn't matter? No mad or what? No, I'm not mad. No, you're mad. Bro, I'm not mad. Swarmlings in the house. I love these guys. The Bracer Bros, as Gino calls them. No idea what that means, but it's fitting. But what's not fitting is the theme of Swarmlings, and 95% of the games these days is like 7 dwellings. So, yeah, spoiler alert, you really don't want to play that expansive. But every now and then you can play expansive. As a matter of fact, the expansive Swarmling games is not only viable, but it's pretty strong. It's just more likely than not, you just want to play these small games and score a bunch of points, hiding in your little corner, playing a bunch of cults. And that's pretty much it for the Swarmlings. It's everything right there. But again, these guys, super high floor, not the highest ceiling, but really easy to play. They might be the best mid-tier faction I have. They're on the cusp of top tier. I don't even have a reason for why I didn't put them top tier. I just think out of muscle memory, I put the 3 that I did. So that's where we're at. All right, let's get it. It's the home stretch right here. Last one, the witches. And I gotta say, the witches are big. Sorry about that, the clip got cut. What I was saying is, witches are big time economy. In all honesty though, there is really nothing special about the witches other than they get 5 points for building towns. So obviously you want to build a bunch of towns. Other than that, just try and win air cult. You should be able to compete for first or second in network. Stay away from super culty, super low footprint games. All right. So here's the key. She's a beaut. And just some final takeaways. Every faction is in the big network category, but the important thing is it's all tiered, so from top to bottom. So those on top are better than those on bottom, and that's applicable to all categories. Also, I was mentioning the big 4 cult factions. I put some pink boxes around those, and there's no surprise you see them in both categories of the Culty 7 and the Play Culty. And if it wasn't clear before, Culty 7-8 is specifically 7 or 8 structures. Any more, it's not in. And that's the end of the faction overview. Hopefully you got something out of this. I don't know why you're actually here. Maybe you were just looking to kill 20 minutes of your time, and this well surpassed those expectations. If you're still confused, there is the next part, which is the opening strategies, and those are going to be very specific. So this was very broad, very general, so don't worry, it's all coming together. And on that note, I'm out. I'll catch you cats later. So the maker, likely you'll see a very expanse. It's just like